My journey started with a single character, a character so beautifully crafted he felt more real than any person I had ever known. I found myself binge-watching The Untamed late into the night, lost in a world of swords, magic, and profound human connection. I was drawn into the quiet dignity of Lan Wangji and the chaotic brilliance of Wei Wuxian, and in doing so, I fell for the two young men who brought them to life, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan. My life, once a predictable cycle of work and rest, became a vibrant, global tapestry of fan communities. I learned Chinese words, stayed up until 3 a.m. to catch a live broadcast, and found an entire online family in fellow fans who shared my devotion. We were all in a similar boat, a quiet, international army united by a single powerful love for two artists who felt like a part of our own lives. Then came the darkness. The public backlash, the silencing, the years of quiet worry. It felt like watching a storm from behind a locked window, unable to help. Every day was a question. Would they be okay? Would the light ever come back? The fan communities, once so loud and vibrant, became a place of whispered prayers and shared anxiety. We held on, not to a hope of a new drama or a new song, but to the hope that the two men we so admired were safe, somewhere out there. Then came the night of the awards ceremony. I was alone in my room, a blanket wrapped around me, a silent watcher among millions. The host was making his veiled, cruel jabs. My heart was a lump of lead in my stomach. The silence was deafening, a public shaming on a global stage. My hands were shaking, and I felt a surge of helplessness that was all too familiar. And then, a moment that felt like it would shatter the screen. Wang Yibo, the king of cool, the man of few words, stood up. He walked to the microphone, his face a perfect mask of defiance, but I knew what it was. It was courage. When he spoke, his voice was a low, steady rumble of truth. He didn't mention the names of his friend or his love. He didn't have to. He just spoke a truth that was so powerful, so raw, that it made my heart feel like it would burst. He spoke about vulnerability. He spoke about standing by someone. He spoke about an artistry that was too pure for a cynical world. I was sobbing, not out of sadness, but out of a sudden, powerful relief. The light had come back. And it had come back in the form of a man who was willing to risk everything to defend his person. In that moment, I wasn't just a fan of an actor. I was a fan of a human being. A good, brave human being. The next mind-blowing scene came on the red carpet of the Vogue Gala. The public had been watching, waiting. The industries had tried to separate them, to contain them, to put them in separate boxes. But there they were, a black arrow cutting through the chaos. I saw the video on my phone, and I gasped. He just walked up to him. He just fell into step beside him. It was an unspoken, beautiful defiance. In that single act, they had told the entire world that they would not be separated. Not by a scandal, not by an agency, and certainly not by a crowd of reporters. I didn't just feel a wave of emotion. I felt a profound sense of pride, as if their courage was my own. Their love was a shield, a silent promise, and it made me feel like I could face anything too. But the most mind-blowing moment of all was the final confession. The public had assumed it was friendship, a beautiful, rare loyalty. But I, and so many of us in the fandom, had always felt it was more. When Xiao Zhan took the microphone, and he began to tell his story, I knew. I knew we were about to hear the truth. He didn't speak of fame or of friendship. He spoke of a great darkness and of a man who just showed up. A man who sat with him in the quiet, in the despair. A man who didn't try to fix him, but just let him be. I had to put my phone down and just breathe. His words weren't just a love story. They were a testament to the power of a quiet presence, of a love so deep it was an act of salvation. He looked at Yibo, and in that look, my own heart was filled with a love that felt as real as my own. In that moment, I knew I was not just a fan of a celebrity couple. I was a witness to a real, human, and achingly beautiful love story. It was the most mind-blowing scene of all, because it wasn't a scene. It was real. It was their truth, and in that truth, they had given all of us the courage to live our own. They had started as two characters on a screen. They had become two artists who gave me the courage to believe in something real. And in doing so, they had given me the greatest gift of all, a belief in a love that could weather any storm. A belief that two people, no matter how different they were, could be a home for each other. They gave me a story to believe in. And it was a story that was still being written. My journey as a superfan of Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan felt complete after their televised confession, but as I soon discovered, it was just the beginning of a new chapter for the entire fandom. The day after the broadcast, my online groups were a hurricane of emotions. The initial shock had given way to an outpouring of love and support, but what came next was something far more profound, a transformation of the community itself. Suddenly, the old divides didn't matter. The fans who had dedicated themselves to one actor over the other, the unspoken tensions and rivalries, seemed to vanish overnight. A new kind of fan group emerged, one that celebrated them not just as individuals, but as a unit. We were no longer Wei Wuxian fans or Lan Wangji fans. We were Team Yizhan. The fan art and stories shifted from individual portraits to dual-themed creations, and the online conversations were filled with a sense of shared purpose and joy. The most mind-blowing part of this shift was how it extended beyond just fan content. We organized a massive, global charity drive, using the momentum of their love story to do something good in the world. We coordinated across continents and time zones, raising a staggering amount of money for a mental health organization, a cause that felt deeply personal to us, given the themes of Yibo's speech. It was a tangible way to turn our digital love into a real-world impact. We were a fandom with a mission, inspired by the two men who had given us the courage to be ourselves. The culmination of this new fan reality came during their first joint public appearance after the confession, a surprise visit to a university campus. The crowd was enormous, but there was an order, a deep respect that had never been there before. When they walked on stage, they didn't have to say anything. The crowd's roar wasn't just a cheer, it was a wave of pure, unfiltered love and gratitude. We didn't see two celebrities. We saw two people who had given us a story to believe in. We had watched their courage grow, and in doing so, we had found our own. Their story had become a powerful force for good, a testament to the idea that authenticity could change the world. And as a fan, my journey had evolved from a solitary love for two artists to a shared, collective love with a million others, all of us working together, connected by a story that was so real, it was mind-blowing. The most unexpected and cherished chapter of my journey as a superfan began not with a grand announcement, but with a quiet, unscripted live broadcast. It was late on a Friday night, and a notification simply popped up on my phone: Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan are live. My heart leaped into my throat. This was unprecedented. Their social media was so carefully managed, every post and appearance so planned. This was spontaneous. I joined the live stream, along with millions of others. The camera was set up in what looked like a cozy living room. Xiao Zhan was sitting on a sofa, a cup of tea in his hands, a soft, comfortable smile on his face. Yibo was sitting beside him on the floor, leaning against the sofa, his head resting against Xiao Zhan's leg. It was a domestic scene so intimate and so real, it felt like we were intruding on their private world. The chat feed was a waterfall of hearts and tears. They didn't have a plan. They weren't selling anything. They just wanted to talk. Xiao Zhan started, his voice soft. "We've seen what you've all done. The charity, the artwork, everything. It's overwhelming." Then Yibo spoke, his voice a low rumble. "We always knew we had great fans. But what you've all done, that's a different level. You've taken our story and made it your own. You've shown us that love is an action." It was a mind-blowing scene, a direct, unfiltered conversation between the two men and their fans. They weren't just talking to us as a collective, they were talking to us as individuals, as people who had been with them through the darkest times. They thanked us for our loyalty, for our courage, for not giving up on them when the world had turned its back. Then, Yibo did something that took my breath away. He reached for a sketchbook on a coffee table and opened it. He flipped through the pages, and my heart stopped. He was showing us their private world. There were sketches of his motorcycle, of Xiao Zhan's cat, of their new home. Then he stopped on a page, and held it up to the camera. It was a meticulously detailed drawing of a sea of red lights, but instead of light sticks, each light was a small glowing heart. And in the center of the sea were two figures, their hands clasped together, their faces a mixture of joy and gratitude. "This," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "is how we see you. You're our light. All of you. You're our courage. And we just wanted you to know that we've always seen you." Xiao Zhan's eyes were glistening with tears as he looked at the drawing, a testament to a love that was not just between them, but between them and us. In that moment, a powerful, unspoken contract was sealed. They were no longer just celebrities. They were our friends, our family. They had opened their hearts, and in doing so, they had given us a gift far more precious than any song or movie, a sense of belonging. The live stream ended as quietly as it had begun, but its impact was felt for months to come. My journey as a superfan had been a quiet, personal one, but in that live stream, I had discovered that it had always been a shared one. It wasn't about an idol worshipping. It was about a deep, mutual respect. We had given them our love, and they had given us their truth, and in that exchange, we had all found a home. The live stream had been a revelation, a raw and honest exchange that had transformed the fandom from a collection of online groups into a unified community with a shared purpose. Inspired by the fans' outpouring of love, Yibo and XiaoZhan felt a renewed sense of creative energy. It was time to give back, not just with words, but with their art. They decided to embark on their first collaborative project as a couple, a music video. The concept was simple yet profound. It would be a visual representation of their journey, a series of mind-blowing scenes that showed the public and private sides of their story. The first part of the video would be shot in black and white, depicting the loneliness and isolation they both felt before their public reunion. There would be scenes of Yibo riding his motorcycle down an empty street, his face shielded by a helmet, a metaphor for the distance he kept from the world. We would see XiaoZhan in a sparsely decorated room, sketching alone, a solitary figure lost in his art. The lighting would be stark, the atmosphere heavy with a sense of quiet despair. Then, the mind-blowing transition. The music would swell, and a sudden burst of color would flood the screen. This part would be a vibrant explosion of life, a visual representation of their reunion. We would see them laughing together on a set, not as actors playing a part, but as two people finding genuine joy in each other's company. The camera would capture small, intimate moments, Yibo teaching XiaoZhan a new dance move in a studio, the two of them cooking a meal together in their kitchen, a fleeting glimpse of their clasped hands as they walked down a bustling street, a simple act of defiance that had come to define them. The climax of the music video would be a powerful, metaphorical scene shot in a single, continuous take. They would be standing on a vast, empty stage, surrounded by darkness. A single spotlight would find them, and they would slowly walk towards each other. As they met in the middle, a million small lights would flicker to life behind them, a sea of red lights, just like the ones from the award ceremony, but this time they would be glowing not for one person, but for them both. The final shot would be a close-up of their faces, their eyes filled with a shared sense of peace and triumph, a silent acknowledgement that they had found their home in each other. For a month, they poured their hearts and souls into the project. The production was a closely guarded secret, a labor of love for a love that had stood the test of time. They worked tirelessly, not as clients and producers, but as artists creating a masterpiece. The final product was more than just a music video. It was a visual love letter to each other, to their fans, and to anyone who had ever had to fight to be their true selves. It was their story, told in their own words, and with their own creative vision. It was a new kind of mind-blowing scene, a private truth made public for all the world to see and celebrate.